And now we should be streaming live on YouTube right about now. Yep. And
Live from Tuesday mid-afternoon.
the most serious,
It,
non-serious podcast ever.
it's Back of the Party podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back, or welcome, because we don't typically release these until we've gotten our system worked out. But now the system's foolproof, at least for now.
Yeah, dude. Uh, Usually does take us a while, but we got our shit together today because we did some prior planning and prepping.
Of course, we're getting better at this, and it's me, Luke, sitting with my friend Brent, the most masculine liberal I know, and we're about to talk about all the topics
Is that true? You think I'm the most masculine liberal?
that I know.
Dude, who is another masculine liberal? Who? I guess that is definitely like a big key factor in it, but uh, yeah, I just don't. I just am not part of this fucking bullshit propaganda agenda that is being spread in America right now. I've already like kind of told you off topic, like off camera, but I don't know. I've had this feeling like something isn't right for a couple months now, and we'll talk about this because I want to get your perspective on it since you lean a little more right wing. Do you think that the recent cancer diagnosis for Joe Biden, you think that was being hidden from the public during his presidency?
Uh, Hidden, I'm not so sure. I honestly couldn't care less. Like, if he had cancer, that's honestly like I can see why people are up in arms about it. But if I don't think it was the cancer that really was like a problem for me, it was the cognitive decline that everybody was denying. You know, everybody can prove me wrong, but I mean, of course, there's obviously probably a level of fatigue or some type of just deficiency in your overall being because you have cancer and your body's fighting like a very, very harmful disease to you. So obviously maybe there's going to be an effect on that towards you performing as in your job. And of course that's one of the most important roles in the world, and you have to be productive and have to be at least at your best mentally and physically to be able to perform. So I don't know. I can buy into it that they hit it, but at the same time, I don't really care. And then also, I wouldn't be surprised if it only showed up a little bit later in his term, and now it's coming into full fruition. I mean, I was really like raising my eyebrow maybe like this year or later last year when I saw that Pfizer will they bought out a startup that was developing medication for super cancers. So just cancers that come from just whatever mutation, uh, and they start growing really rapidly and becoming very, very severe over a short period of time. That's what I found concerning that Pfizer of all companies was doing that, but that's another rabbit hole we can get into at another time. I just think maybe at this point in this world we have so many different like chemicals and different exposures to different harmful things. I think you maybe it just developed really rapidly, and they never tested him at that point for whatever that test is. He reached that age where you don't really necessarily test for that prostate cancer, and so maybe they just didn't test it, and then it started coming into fruition maybe in the middle of his term, maybe not, and it probably came like into a full manifestation now. And I'm just like I get it, but at the same time I don't care. I think people that feel hard done by this last presidency, I think we all need to acknowledge that we were having some type of or feeling some type of way about it, but at the same time, let's get over it. I mean, he's gone. He's done. He's never gonna run again, Joe, and he's possibly gonna die soon, which I wish the best for him.
But you don't think he's gonna run in 2028?
If he makes it to 2028, what the fuck?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That wasn't meant to be like fucked up, like he's gonna die. I'm just saying.
Oh no, I know it was a joke. I was just running it with you, but yeah, I just at this point I don't really care, and I think we have to stop placing so much attention on that stuff, and then we also, as people that supported this new presidency and the people on the right that are more MAGA than me, we just need to also stop using him as a scapegoat because, oh, because of Joe Biden's presidency, da 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 da. It just gives too much of an excuse for people right now at the top positions to have an excuse for their mistakes and their wrongdoings, to just blame it on the last presidency. I mean, a lot of presidents have done that, but I just find it a little bit cliche, and then you're not taking accountability for what you're doing at this moment to fix it.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. I think the emphasis on focusing too much on Joe Biden's, uh, you know, whether he was capable or not of running the second term due to his cancer, whether he was like hiding from the public that he had a cancer diagnosis. I think those are two different things. I think regardless of whether he was hiding it or not, he wasn't fit to be able to run for a second term. I think it's his mistake. I think he's owned it. He's kind of owned it. Um, he still thinks that he could have beat Trump, which he wouldn't have. It wasn't possible this time. Maybe him like 10 years ago at full strength, definitely. I think that would have been a much better fight. I think any one of us would have wanted to see that. Back when he was a little more fiery. But at this point, age takes a toll on us, and he was just a little bit. He was just a little bit too old, like a little bit like we have physical limitations. It's not a reflection of him as a person, more so physical limitations of time and natural human biology, right? I think he just deserves to be chilling with his family, relaxing, get away from high stressful jobs because that makes mental deterioration, accelerate quicker. No one needs that. That's kind of like elder abuse. You wouldn't fucking tell your grandpa who's going through like some sort of Alzheimer's or dementia to, hey, you gotta keep working, grandpa. You gotta keep the family afloat. That would be kind of like elderly abuse at that point. So that's how we should look at him. I think the same thing for Trump, honestly. I'm like, while he's more mentally coherent, it appears, his ideologies to me are just still completely whack shit. To where you can make the argument that he is a little bit incoherent mentally in terms of like, does it make sense? Not in terms of does it present itself well. Because right now, I think to the rest of the world, we look pretty fucking weak. And we've already had, I'm talking about Americans as a collective, right? And especially our government, but also like the general stereotype of Americans. We've already had like a bad reputation with the rest of the world for a while, where they think we just eat hamburgers and we're stupid and we don't get educated and that all our kids get shot in schools, which to a certain extent is pretty fucking accurate if you ask me, right? I mean, like, think about if we treated school shooters the same way that we treated fucking Luigi Mangione, right, for killing a millionaire billionaire, right? Think about if we went through the extent of making a point to really bring back and should make an example out of school shooters. There would be a lot less school shootings, right? Because we have processes, these regulations in place to really protect our children. So going back to the main point before I weave off too much, yeah, I think you answered it correctly because you're not focusing on whether Joe Biden was hiding it or not. You're focusing on whether it even fucking matters.
Exactly. Like a lot of this, or a lot of my thought process for this year and going forward when it comes to dealing with politics and understanding like world topics is there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of like smoke and mirrors. Everybody wants you to get involved in the culture wars and not seeing what's really unfolding. And like to me, like I've talked about it before in private with you, is like I don't care about the Epstein files. I don't care about the Diddy trials. I don't care even about Luigi Mangione at this point because it's something fun to keep track of, and of course we'll discuss them from time to time. But should we be should honestly the general public be obsessing about this when the fact that there's a lot of things going on in the world that we need to focus on? And I mean, there's a war and a genocide going on halfway across the world, and there's a potential World War III culminating, and there's expansionism everywhere, and it's just stuff that's way more important than what we're trying to obsess over right now.
It's true, dude, and I thank you for calling it a genocide because that's exactly what it is. It's just fucking tragic that that's continuously going on, especially under American funding. Because I'm pretty sure most of the American citizens do not want to fund this. They don't even want to fund Ukraine. Most Americans, I think, in unison, whether you're right or left or center, you don't want to fund these wars in overseas. You want that money to go back to helping, for example, people who were part of the natural disasters that happened in North Carolina or in Hawaii or in Los Angeles, right? You want to help your own before you help other countries. You want to, create jobs here. You want to improve healthcare. You want to have the American lifestyle back to where you're not having to work 80 hours a week to just barely pay rent and pay for food and then still get fucked by healthcare or insurance companies. That just doesn't seem right. I think most people can and would agree that these things need to improve. Like, while there may be like the top 10% that are living comfortably, right, that are getting high wages in jobs in certain industries and not feeling the effects of the bad economy or the economy shifting so much. There's a lot of average Americans that are either single income or two income households that are feeling the effects of what it's like to live frugally because of the economic restrictions, because of the systematic issues within the United States. And I think those people, what upsets me more about this whole the way I perceive Trump and the Republican Party in general is that, like you said, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors being presented to them to try to get them to think that they are on their side, they're representing them. But what I see it as is because I'm skeptical of both sides, but especially the Republican Party, is because they're not genuine in trying to deliver these promises. This big beautiful bill that recently passed the House, where they're really really trying to sell the point that there's going to be no tax on tips. There's going to be less taxes on the whole American general public. But meanwhile, that's not true. The people who are going to benefit the most from this tax bill is going to be the top 10%. People between or people who are making less than 50,000 are actually going to pay more in taxes. And while people who are making between 50,000 and 150 are going to get like sub returns, the people who are going to benefit the most are the people making more than 150,000. They're going to get the largest sum of returns from these tax breaks. And this is just going to increase the wealth disparity in America. The wealth gap is going to increase, and then we're just going to be coming back to the same problem. This is what I'm saying. Like, these people, they're not thinking long term. They're not. How do we stabilize the country? How do we make it better going forward for the next generation? How do we improve healthcare? How do we increase wages? How do we do all these things? They're not thinking like that. They're thinking, how can I get the richest within these next 4 years when it's basically going to be anarchy? Because that's what it is. It's anarchy. And then the smoke and mirrors is like the immigration, the um, the anti-Semitism, college students speaking out, judges being arrested because they're going against Trump's orders. and he's claiming it. Oh well, if they don't want to fall in line, then they got to be taken care of. Like to me, that's just authoritarian. And then it brings you this. This is the question that it sparks. Given that, I mean, to me it was like obvious. Maybe to you it wasn't. Maybe to other people it wasn't. But to me it was. Why is it that in some way or another there was a desire for an authoritarian to come and take over America? Was it truly all deception, or was there some sort of desire in the background whenever people voted for him? Because people vote for him, the majority of voters voted for him. That's not debatable. Majority of voters voted, whether it was 3 million, that's still the majority of voters. Yes, half of the country who probably didn't vote, and maybe another half who did vote didn't want that. But the voting majority wanted a sort of authoritative like leader because they overlooked a lot of things in him. They overlooked his lingo. They overlooked some of his shortcomings and his criminal record, his personal immorality. They overlooked a lot of things to bring him into this power. And now, while his popularity has gone down, and I'm sure a lot of people have been, maybe woken up to the fact that he wasn't genuine about his intentions, there is still a large majority who is supporting him, who is saying that he's benefiting the country, he's cleaning up the mess, that they do believe that the last administration was terrible. Like the propaganda is still seeping deep in his loyal supporters. Why is it that they're okay with this sort of authoritarian rule? What do you think?
I think what it comes down to, and we talked about this previously in the year, is that, and I was also a product of that propaganda. Is that we all, I think, the majority that voted for Trump were wanting a desire for the old America and wanting this idea of opportunities everywhere, and it's through countless amount of jobs, and you can work your way up to the top, or you can at least get by with a single household income. I don't know whatever reason, but we wanted that desire for that old America to come back, and that nostalgia that we have in our minds, and we thought we may have lost it, or at least it shifted after COVID. And Trump, I think, was a physical representation of the old America in certain sense, at least like the parts that they highlighted. And I think a lot of people probably gravitated more to his views because they thought he was going to bring back some of those ideals or some of those assets or those same belief systems back into America, and we were going to return back to what we believe was the old America. And I think the reality is, though, is that we never really, like, that old nostalgic feeling was of course there, but it's also, you're looking back through rose tinted glasses. It was there, but it's never really, was it really as good as it was? And of course it was it was good for a while, especially in these periods when we grew up in the 2000s. The dot-com boom was prevalent, and a lot of more money, new money was coming into play. But also there was, a lot of financial crisis, and a lot of the stock market having its downfall like now. And I just think we're looking back with a little too much on the good times and not the bad times. And then also we need to also come to the reality that that past is, it's not in the future anymore. It's never going to be in the future. Whether we try to go back and become this like manufacturing superpower, of course, I think we need to be a little bit more dependent, especially when it comes to energy and maybe some of the more important things like rare earth minerals and fossil fuels, at least at this given time, since we can't sustain other alternative energies. But